All right, let's talk about a risk that can literally evaporate a company's profits. But you won't find it on a typical balance sheet. It's especially critical for the companies that, feed us. We're talking about water. And today we're going to show you exactly how to calculate a company's thirst for it. So think about it. When you're looking at a company's financials, what's that one massive liability that's kind of hiding in plain sight? It's a resource so fundamental, so basic, that we almost always take it for granted. Well, for any business that's involved in growing or processing our food, the answer is, hands down, water. Its availability, its cost, how it's regulated, all of that can make or break their entire operation. So let's open the tap and see how this all works. You see, the agricultural products industry has this immense and, frankly, a very, very risky dependence on water. And we're not just talking about watering crops. No, it's essential for processing, for cleaning, for pretty much all of their day-to-day operations. And when water becomes scarce, or, say, the regulations get tighter, the fallout is immediate. Production can just halt. Costs can absolutely skyrocket for new equipment or for finding new water sources. You could be facing massive fines for not complying, and of course, a company's public image can get seriously tarnished. It is a direct hit to the bottom line. So, how do investors and analysts actually keep track of this risk? Well, they use a specific rulebook. Let's talk about the framework that brings some clarity to all this chaos, the Sustainability Accounting Standard. Just think of this as a common language. It gives companies a standardized way to report their water usage, their risks, and their strategies. And this is what allows us to compare apples to apples, or in this case, one company's water risk to another's, using the exact same metrics. Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. We're going to get into the real nuts and bolts now, the actual formulas and the definitions used to calculate a company's water footprint. Let's do this. First up is a term you've got to know. Water withdrawn. This is the big number. It's the total amount of water a company pulls in from every single source you can think of, whether it's pumped from a river, drawn from a well, or piped in from the city. All of it. But here's the thing. Not all of that water goes back where it came from. And that brings us to our second key term, water consumed. This is the water that's permanently taken out of the local environment. It either evaporates, gets locked into a product, or, it's discharged somewhere else entirely. Now, this distinction is absolutely critical. Withdrawn measures a company's total reliance on water. Consumed, on the other hand, measures its actual environmental impact. So the simplest way to think about it is this. Withdrawn is what you borrow, but consumed is what you don't give back. Okay, let's actually put this into practice with a really core calculation. Let's say a company withdraws 2 million cubic meters of water in total. They figure out that 800,000 of that came from regions that are already facing water shortages. The formula is pretty simple. You just divide the high-stress amount by the total amount and then multiply by 100 to get a percentage. And boom, there's our number, 40%. This single percentage tells you that nearly half of this company's entire water supply is vulnerable. I mean, that is a huge red flag for potential supply chain problems and, for sure, future costs. Right, so the crucial point here is that this 40% isn't just some number on a page. It is a call to action. Companies don't just report the data. They have to explain what on earth they're going to do about it. So first, they have to identify and tell everyone about the specific risks they're facing. Are they in a drought-prone region? Are local water prices just spiking? Are new environmental laws coming down the pike? All of this gives us the critical context behind that 40% number. And this is where the data becomes a roadmap. So in response to that risk, a company might install recycling systems or start harvesting rainwater. But crucially, they have to set a concrete, measurable goal, something like reducing water use by 20% per ton of product by a specific year. This is how you manage what you measure. Now, it's not just about how much water a company uses. It's also about whether they're following the rules. And that brings us to our next key metric, compliance violations. Okay, let's walk through a quick scenario here. Imagine a company has 3 incidents where their wastewater discharge breaks the rules. But for one of those, they just get a warning. The other 2, however, result in official government penalties. So, here's a question for you. Based on that accounting standard we've been talking about, how many of those violations does the company actually have to report publicly? What do you think? The answer is 2. And the why it's 2 is the really crucial part here. The standard is super specific.
Only violations that lead to a formal enforcement action, like a fine or a penalty order, get counted. So this metric isn't tracking every little slip-up. It's tracking the ones with real financial and legal consequences.
So we've walked through the definitions, the formulas, the rules. Now let's tie it all together and talk about why these numbers are just so powerful. This data really tells a story. A high percentage of water use in a stressed region, that signals a fragile supply chain. A rising number of compliance violations, that points to weak operational controls. These numbers can literally predict where a company will need to spend a lot of money in the future. And they create this undeniable link between environmental performance and financial risk.
Ultimately, it all comes down to this simple truth. What gets measured gets managed. In a thirsty world, measuring water isn't just a side project, it is measuring risk.
So the next time you look at a company, especially one that helps feed the world, you'll have the tools to ask a much more informed question. It's not just about profits and losses anymore. It's about water withdrawn and water consumed. So now that you know how to read the numbers, what story is the water telling you?